Over the past few episodes, we've been in Scotland talking about William Wallace and the Scottish fight for independence from the English. And William Wallace's story was made popular by the movie Braveheart, starring Mel Gibson. But what people may not know is that William Wallace wasn't the actual Braveheart. The man who had the title Braveheart was the one depicted right here in this statue, Robert the Bruce, who is also depicted in the movie. And today we are going to be looking at what might have been one of Robert the Bruce's greatest victories at the Battle of Bannockburn. In 1296, King Edward I of England had invaded Scotland to put down a rebellion that had basically been kicked off by a guy named John Balliol, who was the King of Scotland that Edward I had placed as the king of this country after the death of Alexander III of Scotland. In 1297, the rebellion flares up even more, and Andrew Murray and William Wallace have their glorious victory at the Battle of Stirling Bridge. It's followed the next year by William Wallace's epic defeat at Falkirk. Now, in the movie Braveheart, Robert the Bruce is depicted as kind of this weakling of a character. Well, in reality, Robert the Bruce was everything but that. In 1306, there was a rival to the Scottish throne by the name of John Comyn. And Robert the Bruce actually killed this man in the church to secure his spot as the King of Scotland. And over the next few years, well, they would be taking these pieces of ground and castles from the English until they got down here to Stirling. And this is where Robert the Bruce is going to have one of his greatest victories, close by at Bannockburn. So here on this site, they have some interpretation, and I'm going to use this map to try and set up what was going on leading up to the Battle of Bannockburn. So in 1307, Edward I died, and his son Edward II took over. Again, as I mentioned, Robert the Bruce is on a campaign and is taking castles and territory all throughout Scotland, and he gets here to Stirling. Now here is Stirling Castle. Okay, right here is where the Battle of Stirling Bridge had taken place. Okay, so here's Stirling Bridge right here. Now, Robert the Bruce had basically gone throughout the country and was demanding that people pledge loyalty to him instead of John Balliol. So Edward II wasn't going to be having any of that, and he is going to be assembling the largest invading force that Scotland had seen from the English. And this is going to be a multinational force. There's going to be French, there's going to be English, there's going to be Italian mercenaries and Welsh bowmen, and they're going to number approximately 20,000. Now, Stirling Castle is here. There's an old Roman road that leads up to Stirling Castle. This had been besieged by Robert the Bruce's men, and Edward the Bruce, who was the brother of Robert the Bruce, had met with the English garrison here, and basically the English garrison said that if an English relief force didn't arrive by Midsummer's Day, then they would turn over this last strong point to Robert the Bruce. So this is kind of the keystone to this part of Scotland. This is seen as kind of like the dividing line between the north and the south. So Edward II is going to be coming up here with this large invasion force in order to try and take out Robert the Bruce and secure Stirling Castle. And where he's going to enter in from is right here at Milton Ford. Now, at this point, he has a choice. He can either go off to the left, right here, or he can kind of go off to the right. The problem with going off to the left here, this is a wooded area. It's also real boggy right here, so there's a chance that, you know, you could have Scottish troops in the woods, you know, in what was called the New Park, and he avoids that, and instead is going to cross a stream called the Bannockburn right here in this area. It's a good thing that he didn't go off to the left, because Robert the Bruce was actually encamped in the New Park. So that is the area where we are right now, where this memorial is the encampment of Robert the Bruce. Now, what Edward II is going to do that is not good is he's going to enter into the Bannockburn. You have the Bannockburn here, and then you have the Pellstream berm right here, and he's going to do the same thing that happened over here at Stirling Bridge. He's going to bring his men into this pocket that is flanked by two streams and basically stick his head right into a noose. I've moved up to the memorial site here at the New Park, and in the middle of this memorial complex on top of the hill, well, you see this monument right here, and on it says, "For God and Saint Andrew." Robert the Bruce, King of the Scots, planted his standard near this spot when Scottish patriots under his command vanquished the army of Edward II of England at the Battle of Bannockburn, 24th of June, 1314. And then below it says, there's a quote that says, "We fight not for glory, nor for wealth, nor honor, but only and alone we fight for freedom, which no good man surrenders but with his life." So once Robert the Bruce got here at New Park and the Scottish set up their camp, well, as it says there, he is going to plant his standard in this spot. Now, if we walk over here, there's a little small plaque right here. And it's a little bit hard to read, but it says, "Location of the Borestone, where by tradition Robert Bruce raised his standard in 1314. Now, there was something here called the Borestone, which was a large stone where Robert the Bruce is going to plant his standard. Over time, people came in and they would like break off pieces of the stone as souvenirs, and they ended up removing it. The remaining pieces are inside the visitor center. We saw it a little bit earlier before they closed. But yeah, right here is where Robert the Bruce and his men are going to have their encampment. Right out here is the Roman road, and just beyond that is where the Battle of Bannockburn is going to take place. Now, like I said, the spot where we are standing here on the memorial complex is where Robert the Bruce had his encampment, but the battle is going to be taking place off in this direction beyond the Roman road. So I got a little bit of help from a local guide who has pointed me in a few directions. Now, a lot of this battlefield has been lost to urban development, but there are some pockets here and there where I think we can visit and tell a few stories about the Battle of Bannockburn. Well, we have moved over from the new park, and we are now on the actual battlefield. This is kind of an open pocket that, as you can see, hasn't been developed. I can see some homes and apartment complexes and things around me. But this area right here was in that pocket that I was describing earlier between the Bannockburn and the Pellstream Burn. This was an area known as the Carse. Now, this was kind of a marshy, boggy area, but in the summer, well, things would dry up and it would kind of harden up. So that's good for cavalry and for fighting and for things like that. Well, when you have 20,000 men who march through here, well, it kind of starts getting a little bit muddy and a little bit soupy. So it's not going to end up being the best battleground, especially for cavalry. And Robert the Bruce is going to get a detachment and is going to kind of become separated from the main body right here in this area, and is going to come into contact with one of Edward II's best. So on the 23rd of June of 1314, the English would have crossed the Bannockburn, which is real close to us here, and would have been out in this area. And again, Robert the Bruce and this small detachment are going to come down here, and they are going to emerge out here in this area somewhere. We're in the right general area. Well, as he is standing there and talking to his men, he is spotted by one of Edward II's best lancers, a guy by the name of Henry de Bohun. And he decides that he is going to take the opportunity while he has Robert the Bruce in his sights and is going to take him out. So he's going to chop off the head of the snake. So he ends up charging across the battlefield on his horse. Robert the Bruce is also on his horse, and again, the movie Braveheart depicts Robert the Bruce as kind of like this weakling figure who kind of finds himself as the movie progresses. Robert the Bruce was regarded as one of the most fierce warriors in all of Europe, so he's not going to run away. So Henry de Bohun is charging him, and Robert the Bruce is meeting that challenge, and right at the last moment, Robert the Bruce kind of dodges and swings his axe and hits Henry right in the dang head and splits his skull in two. So this is going to be a huge morale boost for the Scots, seeing their leader take out one of the main guys for the English. And for the English, it's going to it's not going to bode well for them. So the English vanguard ends up being driven off, and the English are going to encamp back here in this area, more often this direction, I believe, for the night. And then the big battle is going to commence the next day. So we've moved just a little further into the pocket where the decisive action at the Battle of Bannockburn is going to take place. And also on the 23rd, after Robert the Bruce splits that guy's head, well, there's another English knight by the name of Sir Robert Clifford, who basically gets turned away. And that evening, there is a Scotsman who is with the English army, that his name is Sir Alexander Seton, who ends up defecting to Robert the Bruce. The English are encamped in this area. He goes and he tells Robert the Bruce, hey, these guys are in a bad spot and they are highly disorganized, and if you want to beat Edward II, this might be the time to do it. So the next day, on the 24th, Robert the Bruce and his men line up in the woods, and they enter out into the field, and they all kneel down to pray. And right after that, the decisive action here at Bannockburn is going to take place. So again, we are here closer to the end point of the Carse. We've got the Bannockburn on our right, we've got the Pellstream Burn over to our left, and the Scotsmen are pushing the English further and further into this pocket. Now, Robert the Bruce had his men organized into these schiltrons. Now, we had explanation of this in an earlier video, that the schiltron is basically like a giant hedgehog or a giant porcupine. It's spearmen who are in tightly packed formations, who are advancing, and no matter what angle you come at them from, if you are cavalry, well, you can't penetrate this formation. Now, at the Battle of Falkirk, the way that the English were able to break up these schiltrons was with Welsh bowmen. So they would send arrows into the formation, break it up, and then they could send the cavalry into the gaps. Well, the way that Robert the Bruce addresses this issue during the Battle of Bannockburn is you've got Welsh bowmen who are going to be off to the right here somewhere. Well, he sends in the cavalry and basically takes out the bowmen, and then little by little, the Scottish are going to be pushing the English further and further in this direction. And again, because of the streams on either side, well, they kind of get trapped in this pocket. Eventually, Edward II, who is with his men, is going to panic, and he is going to be evacuated from the battlefield. He might have actually kind of just evacuated himself. And this outnumbered force of Scottish warriors, about 5,000 to 7,000 of them, taking on about 20,000 of the English, are able to just beat them little by little until they are able to achieve victory right here in this pocket. After Edward II flees the battlefield and is trying to make his way to Stirling Castle, well, now his men are basically leaderless. They basically go into a panic and just start an all-out retreat, almost every man for himself, to try and get away from the Scottish and save their own skins. And we're now over a section of the Bannockburn. Now, I don't know how much this has changed since 1314, so it's possible that maybe it was bigger then. I don't know for sure. Maybe somebody who knows more than me can let me know. But you got to keep in mind, these English are in chainmail, they are in armor. That's not exactly easy to swim in. So a lot of these men drown as they are trying to cross the Bannockburn. And it was said that by the time it was all said and done, you could walk from one end to the other on the backs of the dead English who had died trying to cross. Now, is that something that was exaggerated in later years, or is it the truth? Well, that's hard to say. But anyway, here's a section of the Bannockburn. Now, just like at the Battle of Stirling Bridge, you can just imagine the slaughter that is happening here in this pocket of the battlefield. Edward II is hightailing it. He's trying to get to Stirling Castle. When he gets there, he is actually turned away. So he ended up going and hitting the Roman road and going behind Robert the Bruce and basically escaped back to England. And the English who remained here ended up getting just absolutely wrecked. The Scotsmen had casualties that were in the hundreds. For the English, their casualties are going to be around 6,000 or 7,000. We've moved back up to the memorial right here at the New Park site. And after the Battle of Bannockburn, well, Stirling Castle was surrendered to the Scots. But the war for independence wasn't over. As a matter of fact, it wouldn't be until 1328 that the English would finally recognize Scottish independence. After Robert the Bruce's death, his heart was taken out at his request and was taken towards Jerusalem on a crusade so that his heart could be closer to Christ in death than it was in life. And this is where Robert the Bruce gets his name, Braveheart. But anyway, that was a little bit on Robert the Bruce and the Battle of Bannockburn.